In the last 24 hours, we have seen over $290 million in liquidations for the crypto market. It's been pretty volatile, and we're going to be going through why this has happened in the crypto space. Let's kick things off by jumping down into the charts for Bitcoin. So here we can see that we did move back down into our targeted range yesterday. We set a new lower low here for BTC, right? This new lower low for Bitcoin is only really fractionally there. It's very minor, but it is a new lower low. So a lot of technical analysts out there are looking at the market and are putting their warnings out to say that things are not necessarily that strong for Bitcoin at the moment. And I totally align to that on the smaller timeframes. And I really want to kind of be clear to everyone in this video that it is the smaller timeframes that are showing the problems. On the larger macros, actually things are heating up quite nicely. They're not yet done fully correcting, but we are getting very close to a point of significance and a point of reversal. But before we get into that, let's jump back down into the charts and take a look at Bitcoin here. Okay, so here we have Bitcoin paired up with USDT. We're on the 4-hour Binance chart. And we do see, of course, the lower highs coming in here, right? So lower highs are unfortunately a bearish tail along with our lower lows, right? We do have our lower lows coming in here as well. Okay, now as we had yesterday, saw a little bit of volatility. We did see price dropping down to $59,600. It was ever so fractionally lower than the Wednesday low, which was at $59,678. So it is quite minor, but it is a technical new lower low. The positive to be seen here though is that we have got a pretty large wick. This wick on the chart is an indication that there's a lot of buying pressure right at that low range. So we moved down and we came right the way back out. And there's some interesting Bitcoin news that also kind of leads into reversal after that initial pull to the downside. Let's jump back to the charts. So here we can see some of the interesting areas of concern. At least on these smaller timeframes, right? We do, and we are finding at the moment resistance on the 50 SMA and 50 EMA on this 4-hour timeframe. It's still sat significantly higher as well. Currently, this is coming in at $66,029. For us to start to think about more of a move to the upside towards that kind of 67, 68. For a close, a 4-hour close of $66,029. That's going to be an indication for the bulls maybe to start to look. Ultimately, we are going to be trying to get a breakout above our trend line, and a higher high would actually be a pretty decent signal for another run to the upside for Bitcoin here. Okay, so on the 4-hour time frame, we can see that there's obviously areas of concern. If we take a look at the stochastic RSIs across the multiple time frames, we do have a 60-minute overbought situation, a 4-hour overbought situation, which you can see here on the chart right now. And we are looking at the moving average, unfortunately, dipping down lower than the actual stochastic RSI here. So it's not looking strong. We are likely to see rejection on the 50-hour time frame. The 8-hour is also in a very similar position, right? We can see that it is overbought as well. So it's not looking terribly too strong. If we turn off the stochastics and we throw on the divergences, we can see, of course, that we had the bullish divergence just before we had that most recent surge to the upside. But we can also see that we are above the 50 line on the RSI, the relative strength index here, which is our yellow line coming through. So there's a little bit more momentum potentially to the upside if the bulls are able to rally this. I say we still are looking for that close above 66,000. But this is an indication that maybe there's some potential for the surge to the upside to continue. Volume, though, is unfortunately not looking overly too strong in comparison to where the selling volume has been in the past. So as you can see, there's a lot more spikes to the red, as in there's a lot more sellers in terms of the volume than there is on the buying side. So less of an appetite for buying according to the volume profiles there than we are seeing on the volume in terms of the buying side. So on the 4-hour time frame, it's not looking overly strong. Take this to the daily though, and things are not looking overly that bad. As you can kind of see, let's get rid of the stochastics there. We can see that we do have the ability here for a bounce. As I was indicating before, we are looking at this kind of $68,000 to $69,000 as we were talking about the other day, and this one right here being our area of resistance. And our daily stochastics actually turning up, right? We've crossed the white line here, so the average of the stochastic, we're now above that. So, you know, we're looking actually pretty reasonable on the daily time frame. We might see a significant surge to the upside. I am, of course, concerned that maybe we'll find that we are in a bit of a downward trend on the stochastics, meaning that there's going to be lack of momentum, get rejected from the mid-level, and we go back down. And that, I think, really lines up to my thoughts and expectations around this $68,000 level. Ultimately, we were tracking this from an Elliott wave not too long ago. We obviously have come into our targeted range here between the 57,200 and the $60,000. We've tapped into there a couple of times. We can now be looking at a potential three-wave movement up towards that 68K before we finally actually come down and break down even lower. We are, of course, looking on this larger time frame here to try to target out that 200 EMA. At the moment, the 200 daily EMA is sat at $50,462. And this is a huge opportunity. Should this occur, which there's no guarantees in the crypto space, should we actually see a reduction of the Bitcoin price towards $50,000, the altcoins, of course, are going to bleed out quite heavily, and there's huge opportunity in dollar cost averaging into this pullback, because I do see this pullback as kind of something that happens every single time that a Bitcoin halving event occurs. And I say every single time quite loosely because there are the odd exception, as we have seen. This is the fourth Bitcoin halving, and for the most part, we've seen two of the previous three actually being negative post-halving for a short period of time. And then, of course, we had that one exception where things rallied. Now, of course, this is being the fourth Bitcoin halving event. It might actually find that, you know, we actually balance the scales here and we do have a run post-halving for, you know, pretty much the immediate. But I think ultimately, in considering time, we're actually more likely going to see this pullback towards $50,000 as a lot of speculative investors sell off their assets post BTC halving. After, though, I do think we're going to launch, and I do think it's going to be a very, very strong move to the upside to new all-time highs afterwards, as historically this is something that we have seen time and time again. These kind of corrections for Bitcoin are not terrible, in my opinion. They are allowing to shake the markets, remove some of the dead weight, and actually start to bring in new investors, new eyeballs once the halving event is over. So I think this would be a really nice strong place as long as we're above the 200 daily EMA here. Bitcoin is in a good spot, right? There's a lot of people that might tell you that, you know, it's all over, we're going down here from here, and we're just, you know, it's basically all done and dusted. There's nothing left. Sell your crypto, you're done. I think that's the wrong message to be sending out, because I do see that there's still a lot more in the tank for fantastic runs to the upside. It's just a case that actually this potential correction towards $50,000 is the last dollar cost averaging opportunity, the last chance to buy cryptocurrencies before you really get into those strong momentum moves to the upside. We saw this back in 2020, huge shakeout post-halving, and of course we saw a phenomenal run to the upside in 2021. And if this is the end of the bullish market, it will be the worst performing bull market for Bitcoin in BTC history, and many of the altcoins as well that didn't actually make it to their previous all-time highs. It's possible, of course, but I find it quite unlikely. I think there's a lot of things going on in the real world that are, of course, going to be impacting the market as well. So very important that we do watch out for those. The other thing that I kind of want to talk about a little bit is obviously what's going on in the crypto space, right? So from like a news point of view, we can see that we have Bitcoin price hitting 65K as rumors of the Middle East tensions are over. And this is an interesting one. Obviously, there was a tweet that was put out basically saying that breaking the Iranian officials tells that there's no plans for retaliating against Israel's strike. And so there's a few things that kind of to note within the kind of the news side of things. But for the most part, I think, yeah, we've seen a bit of a move to the upside, but we've seen a lot of liquidations, and we were talking about this only really a few days ago, with Bitcoin's price constantly moving between the higher and the lower ranges, liquidating both the longs and the shorts. It's pretty much the same story. We are, of course, in lower highs, lower lows, and of course, Elliott wave is also telling us to expect a little bit more room to the downside. It is possible that we have that bounce to 68 before we see the corrections, and anything above 72, in my opinion, is going to be a clear indication that we are avoiding the 50K range for now, and we have a lot more progression to the upside to go. Let me know what all your thoughts are in the comments below. Do you think that the bull run is over, or do you think we're only just getting started? And do you think 50k is the next pit stop for BTC? Really interested to get everyone's thoughts and opinions, and why don't you check out this video right here. We're discussing a little bit more of what's going on in the crypto space.